Hi, yes. Have a guitar solo. Down, 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 Friday live stream. Should make a song. Friday live stream. I'm joking. Welcome everyone. Well, if you're not going to be live, but then again, this is the new schedule. It's at 5 p.m. Central European time, which is around 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. It's a Friday afternoon, okay, but it's maybe Friday morning. I should maybe need to change my messing around on a Friday morning, right? Yeah. Good day. This is the new schedule time. We had one person pop in and pop out, signing on issues. So we're less than we're just in a minute of our beginning point. We're at 5 o'clock. So there. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Friday live stream. Not the Friday live stream. We're messing around on a Friday, really. Messing around. I'm using the mess around. I should change my logo. Maybe do a new logo series. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm probably going to make a new logo. I think this is that people getting tired of the old logo. My wife says it's ugly. You should change it. I'll probably design a new logo. Congratulations, everyone. We've hit another end of the week. We are live. Things are there. I survived a week, even though it's been lousy. It's been snowstorms like heck on snowstorms as heck. Um, Snowstorms as heck in Poland. Like people, like my friends in America saying the same thing about places. In American politics, you had the Iowa primary, and this coming week we're going to be having the New Hampshire primary, the New Hampshire caucus. Sorry, New Hampshire primary for the that's going to be happening. And what happened when Iowa was a caucus. Now, what's the difference between a caucus and a primary? Well, caucus is more of a social activity. It's not a vote in the proper sense. A caucus in American it's in American politics. A caucus is where the voters, registered voters of the party, will go and meet, and then they will kind of talk and negotiate. There'll be agents at each caucus location. Agents for the candidates will be there, and they will kind of present the position. And what happens is people physically then go after a certain amount of time. They'll do multiple rounds. The first round will be that they will have a situation where there'll be a time. They'll set the time of the caucus. It'll last a certain amount of time. And what it will do is that they will have a certain round. Each side will have every candidate who's present, or not. It's not necessarily the candidate, but his delegated agent. In other words, his person who's going to be in that caucus area. Will be there to talk about the candidate and push why people who came to the caucus should vote for X versus Y. In this Republican case, we vote for Trump. Now, Trump was going to have at least a significant lead, about 10 to 15 point, maybe 20 point, and turned out almost 30-point lead against DeSantis, who came in second. And still had over 51%, 51 plus percent point, 51% of the Republican share. Now people saying, "Oh, but that's not good enough. It shouldn't be this case." Well, I'm sorry. The secret will be Mr. I think everyone's going to get a little shock in the Democratic primary in New Hampshire. And they're really desperate. The Democrats are very desperate in New Hampshire right now that Biden doesn't get below 50%, because they blew off the primary. They didn't do it. He hasn't gone, and has ignored it and accepted there's not going to be a real primary. There is a unknown. I mean, not a major candidate, but it's not even RFK. It's not someone else. I forget the name of it. He's a congressman or a senator who might actually get 30 to maybe even 40% of the. If he gets 30% of the vote, The same argument that and one or two other people get different percentages of vote, and Biden gets just 50 or below 50, this will be a major scandal. We have to remember this what happened in 1968 when Robert Kennedy. LBJ won New Hampshire, okay, in 1968. He won New Hampshire, but he didn't win by enough, because the rule is an incumbent president should have a significant lead, and that the question was what was. Hold on, Democrat. Let's get the numbers correctly. And President Rogers did exactly. The question is that what's going to happen on the thing, and New Hampshire was a very important moment in the so-called Drop Johnson movement in '66 and other things. They wanted to get rid of Johnson in that sense, but Johnson was the candidate, and Johnson in New Hampshire, I think this is that a key moment that New Hampshire Johnson had the candidates were basically Johnson, Robert Kennedy, Eugene McCarthy, and George McGovern. Now, Kennedy came in using the anti-war movement. The real anti-war candidate was McCarthy. Kennedy came in here and kind of did a side swap, so both doing a swap against McGovern and McCarthy, and went after to go to Johnson. What is so interesting about this was, well, the Gallup had it was that the Gallup in February just there. Johnson was 52%, and Kennedy was only 27%. McCarthy didn't even blip, okay, and Humphrey was on it, but on there late. This is 66, February 66, okay. Then after 66, August of 66, January 66, Johnson Gallup polls for Johnson was in below 50, okay, and then what you have is Newsweek, January 7th, 68, had Johnson at 74% and McCarthy at 16%. So nowhere. In other words, this is Robert Kennedy was nowhere. So therefore, what happens in the New Hampshire primary? New Hampshire primary, Kennedy entered March 16 entered this race. New Hampshire primary is what? The New Hampshire primary is the key moment, and that is March, I think. What is the New Hampshire primary in that sense? It was a lot earlier. They moved it late. They moved it earlier than it used to be. New Hampshire running as a candidate, anti-war candidate, McCarthy hoped to pressure Democrats into publicly opposing the war, showing badly in national polls with little chance of influencing this. McCarthy decided to basically push his resources into New Hampshire, first in the state to hold their primary election. Get clean for Gene. That's what this idea that thousands of young college students volunteered to this. On March 12th, McCarthy was the only person on the ballot, as Johnson had not filed, and he was only a write-in candidate. McCarthy won 42% of the primary vote to Johnson's 50%, an extremely strong showing. And this is what led Kennedy to enter the race. Okay, so therefore, this is the idea. This is what the danger of what may happen in uh, and in fact, in many ways, Johnson's 68 problem may be a repeat. In other words, Biden today might represent Johnson's crisis because of Vietnam in 68, and that therefore there might be a last minute. So, therefore, this idea that there was a switch, well, this doesn't really happen in modern politics. And if there, and then remember what happens with the question is not there's alternatives. There are people who are alternative. What happens is then there's the force. Yes, Robert Kennedy was out there, but yeah, then Robert Kennedy will get assassinated. Like I forget when. I have to go get the primary 68 primaries. I have to do that. When does Kennedy get assassinated? When does Kennedy get assassinated? I think Kennedy gets assassinated. Yeah, June 5th. Johnson withdraws March 31st, right after Kennedy. March 12th, New Hampshire primary, where even though he gets 50%, 40% show by Gene McCarthy, a nobody who's naturally not bad. Then Robert Kennedy enters race on the 16th. On the end of the month, the 31st, Johnson withdraws. And actually, what happens is that even at the time, even Kennedy does the ways, he is goes from New York Times 68 April, April 4th 1968. Kennedy gets Johnson gets 12%. April 9th, in other words, I'm sorry. Kennedy entered his race. So on 16th, March 21st, New York Times, 50% Johnson, Eugene McCarthy still 41. Even March 24th, even though Kennedy, it's the U.S. News reports March 24th, 68. It's Johnson 39, Gene McCarthy. So this is what leads Johnson to withdraw. And then once Johnson withdraws, New York Times, this is when Johnson still, even after he says he's drawn, it then turns to 12% and 79% for McCarthy. But then Gallup, what happens is from starting April 9th, technically everyone starts putting in Herbert Humphrey. Humphrey gets, in Gallup, April 9th, 31%. And Robert Kennedy gets 35 and 32. And then again, and then once he formally enters the race, Gallup May 7th, April 27th, Humphrey officially enters the race. Gallup gets that where he gets 40%, and Robert Kennedy is gobbling up Eugene McCarthy's vote percent, because what was before, McCarthy had a huge amount as of April, beginning of April, 79 was not there. Then all of a sudden, early polling showed that all of a sudden gets a 30. He gets 35 as opposed to that a 32. So therefore, he gets a strong position. But then by the end of the month, April 23rd. Gene McCarthy is the lead again, but a slight lead only. Again, within margin of error, we can argue. Then what happens is Eugene, starting in, when Humphrey goes in it, then all of a sudden Humphrey gets the lead. The vice president gets the lead. Herbert Humphrey gets the lead at 40%. But still, it's still a divide between 40%, 31%, and 19. So if you add that, it's you have about 50% and then 10%, decided. Kennedy's assassination and Gallup, then what happens is 53%, Robert Kennedy, June 5th, assassinated, but July 23rd polling of Gallup has him at 53 to 39. So if we look at the polling in that sense, if you look at the structure of the polling, right, and the delegates structure of the convention, well, you have a different reality than today. So therefore, this is a very interesting. So those who are studying American politics, want to look at American politics, I think we're going to have another repeat. I mean, at one level, you can maybe see that New Hampshire, if there is a big anti-Biden win, the question is, will Biden's family decide? Will the people behind Biden convince him to not? Will Jill Biden and the people behind him kind of say, "Hey, senile old man"? How much is Biden in charge? I think and the danger is it's not that there's a strong person. Robert Kennedy, the Democrats did everything to make sure Robert RFK Jr. was not at all allowed to be on the ticket. That's why this unknown guy, this unknown congressman. Let's go look. I want to get the. And in fact, the media is not talking about it at all. But this is why. Yeah, that's the question. It's Dean Phillips and Marianne Williamson are the only people listed on the thing. Okay. Technically, it will be held 23rd January, which is, I think it's, tomorrow's the 20th. So it's Tuesday. I think it's Tuesday. It's 33 delegates. Tuesday, Wednesday. Let's see. Tomorrow will be the Saturday will be 20. So yeah, no. Let's do this. It's Wednesday. 23rd is on Wednesday, if I'm correct. Yeah, 23rd is Tuesday. 23rd is Tuesday. 23rd, Tuesday, the DNC has 33 delegates will be there. But however, none of the delegates will be binding, as the Democratic Convention has not sanctioned this year. So it's not sanctioned, no binding. And the DNC improved that the first place thing is going to be South Carolina. Because why? Because Biden did not so well in North Carolina. I mean, New Hampshire, but won South Carolina because of the black vote and the role of the black vote. And therefore, they want to repeat that tradition in that sense. However, even though the two rules, Dean Phillips and Marianne Williamson are going to be Dean Phillips from if he gets 30% in the writing. In other words, this is going to be a very problematic thing. And this is why the New Hampshire, for Democratic purposes, New Hampshire might be a signal. They didn't want it to be a signal. I think Biden purposely didn't want it, and the DNC did not want to have this. They didn't want to have RFK on it. So the idea of this is not going to be meaningless. But even if it's not a binding thing, the symbolism of Biden getting under 50, only 50, it will basically problematize all this talk that, well, Trump is not that popular because he only got 50% of the Republican votes. In other words, this is the thing that they've said in Iowa, that the mainstream media said in Iowa, and this is what they said here. So a little bit of polling and studying the election race is going to be fun. I teach American Studies. I'm American Studies. I'm doing American politics as my classes. I don't really have a class. I'm not doing an election course this coming. We have a visiting professor from an American school who's going to be here doing American politics. He's this leadership man. Well, he's a typical American political science liberal. I don't expect much of him. What's going to be interesting in this is I think I may do a thing for students about the upcoming election in that sense, because I think there is a chance of the primaries are going to be kind of a big thing. I think this is going to be a big thing. I think we look carefully at what will happen at thing. I think this is going to be a big thing. I think for Trump, it's going to win. Haley needs Democratic voters. Haley needs to get Democrats. But the problem with this, New Hampshire rule is clear that if you're a registered Democrat, well, it's past the deadline. And we have to understand a lot of Northeasterners, I mean, even my mother and my family, my mother was not alive anymore, but we grew up, and even we were never formally ever Republicans, even though my father's family, after, my mother, when she grew up, she was always an independent. A lot of Northeasterners are independent. If you go look at the voter surveys, at least 30 to 20, 23 to 30% of the various Northeastern states, you'll see a large number of independents. And that used to be, this is so-called the independent vote. Well, in the New Hampshire primary, a new independents can register on the day of the primary as a Republican or a Democrat. Okay. But one or the other. And this is what Haley is. And that you have to understand the nature of the demographics of New Hampshire, the large north. Because remember, this would happen. The same thing with Vermont. Vermont, or the northwestern part near the Lake Champlain, Bennington, and those areas. Basically, because these New England states, New Hampshire and Vermont, had almost no income tax. Okay, they were old Republican. The traditional population were old Republicans who lawfully did not have any income tax. So this is like during the 60s and 70s and even 80s. These were still, but Vermont went more Democrat quickly. Why? Because the rich and progressive Democrats fleeing New York went into rich New Yorkers started buying cheap land and living in New York. They run their business in New York, but they avoid tax by living in Vermont. Bernie Sanders is a perfect example of this. He became the mayor of Burlington because he was this New York Jew who simply just went up there to kind of start appealing to all these New York transfers into the Burlington and the metropolitan northeastern corridor, the flatland corridor of Vermont. The hill areas, the hill populations of both of New Hampshire and Vermont tend to be more Republican, more traditionally Republican than that more traditional libertarian Republican in that sense. But that's even changing now. If the northwestern part of Vermont is this flatland, the southeastern part of New Hampshire, which has a little bit of coast between Massachusetts and that, and this is where wealthy middle class New Hampshire people, starting in the 1980s and late 70s, early 80s, mostly 80s and 90s, started flooding into southern New Hampshire, and to avoid the taxes and the problems and the urban crisis. I mean, as the urban hellhole that is Boston. Boston looks nice, but as the demographic instability of minorities and Hispanics and the Black Hispanic conflict. It used to be Irish. The Irish fled up. The Irish often became marginalized and went south and other worlds. But the Italians and the Italians also they still kind of went there. The Irish are the largest minority, but then Black and Irish fought like hell in places like Boston. And now what happened was who's replaced the Irish has been the Puerto Ricans and Dominicans. So you have a different dynamic, and as those conflicts go like this way, the rich Democrats, wealthy middle class white Democrats don't like it. White flight. Okay, white liberals flee from minorities. I'm sorry, this is the truth. You show me a white liberal, they don't want to be around Blacks, Hispanics at all. They fled into southern New Hampshire. And what happened was that they changed the politics of New Hampshire. And this is why New Hampshire is much more liberal than it was 30 years ago and 40 years ago because of this. This actually is a warning to states like Florida and Texas as the leftists from California, these professional liberal, professional educated classes, these engineers, the computer science peoples, and these businesses start fleeing the hellholes of New York and Florida. They will bring their mental illness of democratic voting behavior with them. Okay, maybe the locals should kind of prevent them from coming down there. Go them come there. When you get an Chicago person coming to Texas, you should knock on their door and say, "You vote Democrat, will." I joke about that, but that's true. What happens is that the bluing, it's the bluing of Texas will not be because of Mexicans. The bluing of Texas, and even the bluing of someplace like Florida, will be due to white urban liberals fleeing the hellholes that their policies have made, and bringing their political illnesses with them, their voting behavior with them. Actually, I would even have a rule. If it wasn't for the stupid 14th Amendment and states had to do it, someone coming to a new state should have like a 10-year wait before they can vote on local politics until they, understand the state. But that's the old days, not the new days. 14th Amendment, everyone's first, that citizenship was defined by the states, not by the national government. After 14th Amendment, that's no longer the case. So I'm sorry I get this dialogue on this, because this has been the issue of domestic, anyone studying American politics and like this have done this. On this week for me teaching, it's my students. Okay, my American students online have been kind of, this week has been they're doing their second international law case where they're dealing with crimes, the question of applying war crimes and things like this, and they're doing their moot court case, and they're busy doing that. My Polish students at Warsaw University, well, it's a half of them have not. Okay, my BA students they've done the topics. They just now have to get their literature reviews. A lot of them didn't come to class last week. They all came the first week after vacation, but then this Monday, they didn't come to class, and I was kind of like, a little anxious about it. Because I suspected they didn't want to bring their literature. They haven't got their bibliographies up. They need to bring their bibliographies, because the last thing they have to do by the end of February, that makes you first week of, and like this end of the 9th or 10th of February, 6th, 8th of February, is there is kind of a kind of literature review. What is literature review? It's kind of like a summary of the topic, secondary scholarship on the topic. So that and have basically just a working draft bibliography. So next semester, the same group will be writing their BA paper, which is basically a 20-page, 30-page paper that argues flushes out and develops the topic they picked, the claim they're making. So that's I have about technically 8 of them, which one of them is actually with another teacher, but he asked me. He's basically dealing with the content. I'm dealing with the writing and things like that. And then the other thing is I have an 8-group MA Pro seminar where really, to be honest with you, I have only 5 students. And 4 of them have, I think 4 people have submitted their reviews. Or maybe, no. 2 so far. 2 have submitted their review. There's only 2 assignments in this, major assignments in this. That is, they're expected to do a major paper, research paper, but they have to pick a topic. So I reach out there with them, and I think most of them have picked the topic. 5 of them have picked the topic. 4 are going to 4 or 5. I think there's ghost one of the year. The guy who's the one guy is there. One guy's missing. There's two men in the class. One is kind of disappeared. Two guys, and two of them have disappered, and I think and the one guy that's remaining is there. And it's like 8 technically, and that there's one of the girls. I think she may be even just a ghost in that sense, and so I'm kind of like nervous about this. They're master students who are supposed to be doing it. None of the master students really want intellectual history. They're mostly social politics. I don't sense that they really are interested in intellectual history. I mean, one or two maybe, one or two do show signs of it. And what's happening is sometimes I kind of want to focus on writing, and I've given them the idea that they have to do at the end of the same day that their papers due, and like end of the 9th, I think the 6th, 7th, like that of February. They also have to submit a video where they present their findings, do a presentation, and they go to a conference presentation. So I have to talk some more about what do you do in a presentation? How do you handle it? And that's what I'm doing as a teacher in that sense. I should get off my ass and set up my new Moodle classes for next semester. I have 5 classes. I technically have 6, but really they're really 1. I'm having a course I'm doing the ratification. Okay. The drafting of the Constitution of Philadelphia, the ratification, and the public debate for ratification. That is the American founding class. That has, as of now, it's filled. It has 19 students in it, and there are only 19 slots. 19 students are filled, and I have 4 slots for outside, 4 to 5 slots for outside students, and they're all, but I think 4 are filled. I think there's only 4 slots. I think they're filled already. So it's like, ooh, that's been like shocking how well, especially given the idea that I'm not liked. Maybe the students had no choice and they had to do something. What is it? I want to just go look for a second. Yes, okay. What are you doing? I'm getting nonsense. Hold on. Sorry. I'll just kill this. Okay, I don't want. Dominic Cummings. I get emails from Dominic. Some thing. I like Dom. He's interesting, but I don't have the energy to pay. I'm not wealthy enough to afford these things. Hold on, doing like this. Hold on, log in. Hold on, let me just do it quickly. I just want to see the number of students in the introduction to government. I have an introduction to politics course for next semester. It's Thursdays. It's Thursdays in the afternoon, so I'm kind of happy about that. Let's see what it is. It's 20 students. It's 20 out of 20. I have there's only 20 students in it. 20 out of 20 filled. It's filled. So it's first year freshmen. So it's like, wow. So I don't feel bad in that sense. I'm waiting for my lawyer to. I have received. Last week. I signed it on Tuesday, so I have until the 29th, Monday the 29th, to send my appeal to the commission chairperson. My lawyer is I was supposed to get today, but they said Monday they're going to finish it today. They're going to send me a letter, which is what my appeal. I might have to send some comments back to the lawyer, and they edit it, and they'll do it like by no later than Thursday, Friday. They will have it delivered to the chairman of the thing, and then they'll get sent to the rector for my appeal. And I think I don't know. I'm a little more optimistic about the appeal, that it will get positive appeal. But I'm a little nervous about this. I'm kind of not in a good mood about having to deal with the political the attack. And the more I looked at the notes of it, it's shocking because the accusation made in the report, significant elements of it was completely absent from the the protocol, the snippets of the protocol. So I'm supposed to get copies of everything that was said in discussion and amongst them, so they didn't discuss it, deliberate on it, and it's part of the ruling, the decision. That's problematic. That is, where is the basis of this for this complaint? There's no evidence of it in the damn deliberation. So are you hiding? Did you not show me this so I wouldn't see who said these things and these statements, so I can sue them for? I warned the director when this first was that I was going to go after anyone who said these things as slanderous, since they are slanderous, and I was going to use my right to go after them. And this is they're not used to. They think, oh, you mean? I'm sorry, I'm an American. We will sue. We sue. You slander somebody. That's a crime. And that's not a crime. It's actionable. Harm has been done, and you have the right to sue them for the harm they have done and punish them by punishing them financially. And I have no moral qualms about having one of those guys, one of these men and women who, if they said those statements in a document and then said it to colleagues that influence a decision, that I'm going to sue them for slander, and I will get. I may not get the hundreds of thousands of dollars, but I'll get enough maybe to make them take a mortgage on their house or have to sell their apartment. Yeah, kick them out, kick their family and them out of their house. Yes, that'll serve them right by saying something that, you should be careful in saying something in an official statement or publicly that slanders a person. Okay, the only exception is truth. Now, the evidence for them to say what I'm guilty of. Where's the truth of this? That's going to be hard to say. They'd have to have specific evidence of something of that claim, and that the problem would be that they try to influence, and therefore there's a threat of endangerment of my employment. So that's why I'm kind of in a pissy mood in that sense. Now, research-wise, I talked about my rewriting of. I rewrote. I kind of cut out sections to get it sent to the document. To a Polish journal, but the problem with the Polish journal is that it might be less points than it was, because the new Minister of Higher Education, just like a couple days ago, sent a new list, and with the journal, I thought it was going to be about worth about 100 points. Now it's going to be worth less, 70 points. So therefore, I was kind of like, whoa, this is like I sent it there only. Okay, I sent it there for two reasons. One, that I could make it that length. I had to cut the character length. I didn't have to alter things, and that's there. So that's the explanation of what my doing stuff. I got articles to do. I'm doing like that. YouTubing. Okay, we had this long discussion about YouTubing, about what I'm doing in YouTubing. I'm doing the Aristotle, where I just finished the videotaping of book 1, and I'm going to start, I think, tomorrow, a little bit of videotaping to start book 2 of the ethics. Again, I'm doing the videos. In fact, there's going to be a release of a video today at 6 o'clock on book 1. Again, that's recording. So I'm going to do 5 days a week, and I think there's going to be even a special video tomorrow because it was so short. I wasn't. Part of me said, okay, maybe I'll do it on Saturday. Maybe I will post one on Saturday now. I'm not sure whether I'll do it consistently. I don't know. I mean, doing 6 videos a week, but given how big the ethics is turning out to be because of how short, because of I want to follow the procedure of a video, each chapter gets a video. Okay. Now, of course, I didn't do that for the argument is, well, why didn't you do that for the Aristotle? I mean, Montesquieu. That would have been ridiculous, really ridiculous amount of videos and small. Now, people are saying the same thing. Well, why don't you make these videos a little longer, put them together? But sometimes it's the problem. You can't. If you put 2 together, then the logic of it. I think I'm going to keep it this way for the Aristotle because it works. I might go on a comment or something like this and go into some depth. Is that going to keep what I want to do? Now, we'll end on this. I don't see we have one person left in the audience. I don't know if other people are there, and I know no one has said hi. My normal people haven't shown up today, so I don't see what's going on. Like I said last week, I showed the Hoffer book about Plato's laws, not laws, Plato's letters. Translation that's new out there. That's going to be interesting. In a book I ordered almost a year and a half ago, finally came. Dennis Davis, Michael Davis's. And Michael Davis was at Sarah Lawrence College for a long time. I think he's retired now. Was it? He doesn't. Yeah, he's retired. He's emeritus, so I don't think he's actually teaching there anymore. And a chapter part of this was already published as part of an essay on an earlier version of one chapter here was published as part of a fresher for Rana Berger. He doesn't mention where he's teaching anymore, so I suspect he's emeritus from Sarah Lawrence. And this is one of his last books in that sense. This is looking at the Electras, the Electras, which are famous Greek play by Electra, about Electra, and there's Aeschylus is one, Sophocles is one, and Euripides' Electra. And this is his comparative attempt, revisits questions of interpretation of Greek tragedy, emerging again from his professor Seth Benedetti interpretation of this. And this is not he said, this is not a book about Benedetti would have written. It wrestles with the problems that bear Benedetti's remark, right? And the extant tragedies of Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Epicles, only one story is treated by all three, the tale of Electra. Davis endeavors to develop Benedetti's understanding of the story's deeper in meaning as well as the connection that might be drawn between these three authors. He follows a thread that brings Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Epicles closer together according to a powerful and shared theme, namely that of the female is the deeper and even if less easily accessible and articulated of the pair of fundamental principles constituting human beings. So the question of what is the female? What is the human being and the female? And the human is the most, as it says, the female is the most accessible in that sense. And therefore the question of the problem of the male, right? So that's been one thing, and therefore that's been my philosophy. Why don't you do more philosophy? You ruined the beginning of this video by talking about American politics. No, I'm a political scientist. I like philosophy and I can do it, but I'm more of a political junkie in that sense. The other thing that came in that I wanted was to show. I showed in this to some people. This is this new series, the whole new series I talked about before, by Princeton University Press. How to do different things. These are kind of these are the new lobes. One side is the Greek, and then the other side will be a modern English translation. And it's kind of thematically, unlike the lobes does the whole book. Here we'll do a theme. I have some already. We had How to Be a Leader, which does Plutarch's Constitutia. We have I have some here. I'm going to pull this over here. I have How to Be a Friend. This is Cicero de Animica. How to Be a Farmer. This is basically, of course, both not only about Greek authors but also Latin authors. You have numerous people from Greek and Roman players, from basically looking at the questions of the agrarian way. But so it looks at it's a very interesting. This is almost a kind of an agrarian handbook about the defense of agrarianism from the classic point of view. I think Victor Davis Hampson would probably like to talk about this. I think that would be a kind of a tribute to Victor Hansen, that he does talk about something like that. This is the classics, and because it will have the Greek and Latin. Again, this is not just one author; it's many authors. So it's analogy, 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 analogy. Yes, analogy, not analogy. Collection of. Okay, I'm losing my English now. That's sad, sad, sad. Uh, an allegory. Allegory is like a story of something. Um, Analogy, not analogy. Analogy is something like something is something be anonymous. Something like you analogy would be this is to this. What is the word? It's a collection of essays. Uh, it is the collection of essays. Oh, I'm losing that. I've been in too far and not. I don't hear enough English speakers, and I don't get to experience English as a first language. The Flourish book is Aristotle, How to Flourish. Aristotle's Ethics. This is based, but looking at the theme of happiness, the question of happiness, in the various books of the whole ethics. This is not a translation of the whole ethics, but it is looking through. It goes through all 10 books of the Nicomachean Ethics, and looking at the thing. It's a very good thing. And then there's other ones. There's How to Win an Election. There's a whole bunch of them, and they're great edition sets for those who wish to learn, develop their Greek. Also learn to kind of they're very good sets to kind of, and they have the wonderful set about how to think about war, which again Thucydides. It's based on Thucydides, and it's a Peloponnesian War. Again, it both has the original Greek on one side and English translations, and with very good introductions and explanatory things. So it's again those who want to kind of flush and learn to. This is for those who want to learn Greek. I would recommend another series that I've dealt with before, Stedman's editions of books, which have the Greek text with the vocabulary below it, and that you can start developing. There needs to be a better grammar. I did my grammars, the old grammars. I have to go find my old Greek grammars. There are 2 or 3 old Greek grammars that I did it. The 2 introductions, plus then there's Smith's. The Smith's ancient Greek. It's like it's Harvard University, but it's old. Then I have the Fordham University Press things, Greek in the intensive course. And now that there's a Cambridge edition that's out there that people say I should look into, and I go, oh, is it? I haven't looked at it for a long time. What is it? If I go down to here, no, it's really old. I think I thought about getting it a long time ago, and it's gone. It's no longer on my. Yeah, it's Oxford Grammar of Classical Greek. Mine was the Smith edition that I grew up with. Then I have the one that's above up there. It's up there. It's above that, and then there's a new one by Van Emes Boras and Rickenbaron and others, published by Cambridge Grammar of Classical Greek, which is about that's available. So those are the famous ones that and then there is the Theodore and Johannes Vassilopoulos, the beginner's workbook for Greek, right? That is classical, and that's exercise of basic Greek. It's not even ancient Greece. I think that is. There's lots of little teeny good books out there for learning ancient Greek in that sense. Peter Jones's famous one. Well, that's the kind of the books I've been kind of doing. I have another Alex Pruo's book Where is it? The Defending Socrates. About this is the trilogy by Rouge. He runs the the new Thinkery web blog. It's kind of a, what is the word? It's not a blog. It's a Spotify podcast. And he does Twitter. He's very active in Twitter. And this is the book that is basically the trilogy, the trilogy of the Theaetetus, statesman, and the sophist and statesman. Again, this is echoing both Betterdedi himself, Betterdedi, the Being and the Beautiful, the famous Being and the Beautiful, which is his translation and commentaries on the trilogy. And then this is also responding to, what's his name? The St. John's guy, the guy from St. John's, Jacob Klein. Klein, one of the books is, he published in the Chicago Press about the trilogy on these three Platonic dialogues. Now, in fact, one could argue the reason why Betterdedi probably did this was kind of the correct, Betterdedi's attempt to do this issue was kind of to respond to Klein and to show Klein was wrong in that sense. Because Klein and Betterdedi didn't get Betterdedi just really disliked John. He went to St. John's and went there and wasn't necessary. They didn't get along with each other, and it was just something weird. There's a good story about that among the studies of Betterdedi's students and Betterdedi's time at St. John's. And this is seen in his reflections and remembrances and reflections by Betterdedi, which are worth reading in that sense about the St. John's time. In fact, he was the one who recommended Eva Braun to, not Eva Braun, Hitler's mistress, but Eva Braun, this classicist scholar that he met at Harvard, to go to be hired by St. John's, and she became basically the soul that kept after Klein's death, the engine that kept kind of St. John's, and still, so even though she's in her I think she's in 90s now, she still writes and active in this sense, but she no longer teaches. But she is still looked up as a kind of an engine of this Kleinian approach to classics of the great books at St. John's. And it was Betterdedi who sent her to in that sense. I don't know whether that was a blessing or a curse by Betterdedi. Well, it's he saw her nature and decided that she'd be better fit for him than them than him. What else is there to do? We're at the end of our time, since no one's here. What am I doing in that sense? I want to continue my Aristotle's Ethics. We're doing the Aristotle Ethics. I just ordered for myself the third edition of Irwin. Okay, we said Mr. Eric Friedman. Pardon me, Mr. Clifford. Okay, they're pardoned. Terrace Irwin's third edition of the Ethics is available, so that's I'm kind of like I've used it 20 years ago, 30 years ago. 30 years ago I used the Irwin first and second edition. I have other editions. As much as I'm a kind of I've mastered all the editions of Aristotle's Politics. I did a significant number of the Ethics, not as much as. Well, that's not true. I think I've done both in that sense. I know about the edition of the Ethics by what's his name? I have it right here. It's by Giles, who is the second English edition completely that replaces in the Politics replaces Ellis's, the first complete English from Greek to English translation of the Politics. Ellis. Giles was the kind of 1789 kind of response to Ellis's And there's very good letter to Jefferson saying, "Hey, Tom Jefferson, oh, is Giles' translation better than Ellis?" And Jefferson, who knew, read and owned a copy of the Ellis translation of the Politics, Ellis's translation, who only been heard about the Giles by reputation. Um, um, okay, but Giles also does the translation of the Ethics. In fact, it's together in his edition of it. It's together. The Ethics and Politics are together. Um, um, and that's kind of important. And that's one of the first, but that's earlier ones. That's the problem. That Politics is translated later, and it's usually the earlier translation before 1776 Ellis's are done from the French into English. In fact, even Queen Elizabeth translates a section of the Politics, and I suspect it is only not the whole Politics, but just a couple passages from the Greek, but also relying on the an existing French edition that was the very commonly read through before her time and during her father Henry VIII and Henry VII. Okay, so Aristotle's Politics was available, but it was usually understood through the French translations of the older translation. I forget what date it's like, Barbiette. I've noticed an odd trend of guys having the most lovely partners, but leaving them to pursue. Okay, I find curious finding love and not being grateful. Oh, oh, why do you think there is such a feeling of general dissatisfaction between people expecting of each other and what? Well, why do men? It's because as they get older, what happens is they get bored. You know, they want to talk about. You ask me what why is a very modern thing. It's not a very modern thing. I hate to say it, that men have mistresses all through humanity. In fact, you have to understand the real aspect of marriage before the modern world was not love, it was economics. People married, and particularly the aristocrats. Aristocrats never really cared for love. The idea you marry for love. This is a relative mod. This emerged out of a rebellion against Roman patriarch. The Roman tradition of fathers determining that the father will determine the marriage. The parents will determine the marriage. Marriage was an economic thing. It was about the goodness of the well-being of the family and the dynasty, or the dynastic origin of the family, and therefore that is. And the idea is love is a modern. In fact, the idea of romanticization, romantics. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Nouvelle Heloise, Emile, Emile Julie. This idea that we marry for romantic love. Yes, there's a Christian element. The idea that the man and the woman could marry without go to the priest, and the priest would marry them without the permission of the parents. And another famous line: "What God puts together, that no man, including dads and parents, put asunder." Right? Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet tragedy of that. Right? Um, um, but this idea of romantic love has a problem, because as anyone knows, Eros is desire. Eros is erotic desire, and as we study love is erotic desire is the wanting of what you don't have, and what you don't have. Once you got it, you have it, and Eros disappears. Okay, so what normally happens is the held together marriage was children, but the problem was that once the children grew up, and that husband and wife were not okay. Another aspect of marriage is friendship. Philia, friendship. Without friendship, marriage would collapse. Okay, you have to be friends. If you're not friends, that's go read Cicero, Diamicia, or even Aristotle's book, Nicomachean Ethics. Um, uh, well, you should ask me about the crystallization of love. Love is one of those. Love means more things. This is why C.S. Lewis's classic essay on the four loves is a very important understanding. Love is not one concept; it's four different concepts that have itself. It's a sorge, which is kind of care, caritas, which is like, what is caritas? Caritas is care also. It's often translated as charity, but it's kind of selfless care, where sorge is actually material care or concern. Concern. I think sorge is more concern. Agape is more care. Eros is desire, erotic desire, longing, and then philia is friendship, or a kind of affection. We can cite this all in terms of even affection, which is a form of philia. Also, philia is both not only affection, but we also say philia is also friendship in that sense. Marriage is supposed to be a friendship in that sense, if it's going to last, if it's going to be. Yes, there's the procreative. In other words, if the probable procreative is okay, this is the conjugal society. This is Locke's in the second treatise talks about conjugal society. Well, the men and women have this the animal aspect of men and women in the need to breed, right? This will lead them to join together to reproduce. This is conjugal society. The problem with conjugal relations is that once the child is brought and reared, there's no more bond. Okay, the bond will die. So what is the bond that holds man and woman together? If it isn't friendship, then it will be nothing else. Sex is a temporary thing. Sex will, and what's wrong with modern society is that basically people came together for love, and that basically was kind of sex. And then what happened is children happen, but once children are taken out, what happens? They get involved in and then what happens is this is the disaster of men and women competing with each other. The surest way to destroy a marriage in a friendship is to get in a competing match between them. And in a society where there's another thing is obligation of marriage. That the idea is that once we've removed marriage as something that it's supposed to be hold us together forever, and that there should be no separation unless there's a real serious violation. In other words, if marriage is nothing more than a coalition of convenience of pleasure, then if I'm not getting my interest and you're not getting your, in other words, if each party is not happy or not satisfied by their interest, the second one party is no longer satisfied, they no longer have an obligation to the other. Well, then that leads to the second one party gets bored or unfulfilled in their sense of happiness. Will lead to them breaking away. Now, society has rules. Society, a political community in society had norms which punished people for doing that. In other words, we made the cost of breaking those relationships high. But no, starting in the 1950s and 60s, we started to make it easier. Now, I mean, one of the reasons why Vietnam War kept all these young men married women in 1960s was to get out of Vietnam. Rich white men married women in order to once they finished college, they married quickly. Why? To avoid going to Vietnam. Okay, marriage exemption, right? Then what happened when the Vietnam War draft ended? Divorce revolution. Everyone no longer, the reason why you didn't marry them to avoid going to Vietnam. Maybe you had kids, maybe you didn't. But then once the threat of being, if you divorced your wife during the draft period, you were fucked. You were sent to Vietnam. If you were under you were eligible still to be drafted. You went to Vietnam. The only way you get the draft exemption would be, again, rich white men. This was the case. Poor white men and African Americans and minorities, it didn't matter if they were married or not. Poor people, if they're married, oh, fuck you, you're going to Vietnam anyways. There was a class in Vietnam in 1960s, America. It was a class war in that sense. It was the middle class and higher could exempt themselves from being drafted. Unlike World War II and previous America, Civil War people could just buy their way out. The wealthier people could simply just buy a substitute. But in World War, that was kind of still the case in World War One, but not World War Two. You couldn't get away with the substitute argument anymore because of the egalitarian myth in the modern times. So there was this situation where during World War II, significant portions of the middle class and the upper classes went to fight in the war. Okay, but after Korea, that's gone. Vietnam, they did as much. The upper classes that they and the middle class and the upper class, they get exempted from sending their kids to college and getting married. And what happened was that if you were you got married, well, and you're unhappy, your marriage unhappy, well, you better to shut up, because being stuck in an unhappy marriage is better than having your ass shipped to Vietnam, okay, as a doctor and a lawyer and officer, okay. So and getting yourself killed. When Vietnam ended, the draft ended in that sense. Then all of a sudden we had the divorce revolution, 1970s, right? There's, they joke about that. The sexual revolution, the hippie movement was good for school kids, and that all these married men, all of a sudden wanted to get that now they didn't have to pay a cost for divorce, and therefore they did it like this. This does provide much of the ideas and stereotypes of the unhappy couples. In other words, that there was social. Not only so, there was the draft was a mechanism of social commitment in that sense, but also the stigma, the cost of divorce. In fact, divorce is a costly thing. Getting divorced is not a cheap thing. This is only the wealthy can really do it with effective. Poor people get divorced. This ensures that they will stay poor. If you're lower middle class and you get divorced, the economic ruins of divorce and what divorce does to children perpetuates nothing good. In other words, the children of divorce, the evidence of this is clear. It is not good. It is disastrous. The effects of divorce among the lower middle class and lower portion of society is devastating. Only the aristocrats benefit from divorce. Only aristocratic, the very high elite and the very wealthy develop. The same thing with alcohol, drugs, and these things. In other words, if you're a part of the elite, if you're a part of the wealthy elite, vices don't affect you that much. Your family and your wealth protect you to a great degree. Whereas if you're middle class and lower, the fact that you engage in alcoholism or drugs or even divorce will fuck you like anything else and destroy not only you, your wife, but also your children to a great degree. The children, the very wealthy children of the aristocrats who dandy about and do stuff, are simply just don't, they can be shipped off to school. Come on, look at Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill's ma and pa, daddy got syphilis. Winston Churchill's father had syphilis and died from syphilis. His mother was sleeping around with didn't get syphilis, she didn't get syphilis, but she was having affairs like anything. The aristocrats go look at the 19th century aristocrats, and it's like, luxury allows you to do something. This allows you to avoid the impact of the bad vices, and the children are protected because they go to boarding schools. They have nannies. They have people who care for them and marry them. But if you're talking about the lower middle class and the poor, they don't have the money to pay for people who can care for your children. So therefore, this is luxury, the luxury belief thing. Exactly, Cortez. Thank you for joining. We're over an hour, and I'm responding to Mr. Freeland's point. And you're saying, what is it? How often do you share? I only live streams on Fridays, not always. And sometimes I do a substitute. I can't always do this. It's my messing around on a Friday. My normal channel is on my reading. Right now, we're doing Aristotle's Nicomachean ethics, and so. And what we're turning on ethics is about happiness. What is happiness? What is the good life? What is the good life? Why is virtue, or what is virtue but moral excellence, moral character? The things of moral character are important and essential to living well. Okay, this is why the Greeks and the Romans understood this much better. Now we have pop psychology telling us things, and it's very funny. I mean, some of the pop psychology, like Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson and even God Saad are not saying anything new. They're just repeating what the Greeks and Romans knew thousands of years ago, and that everyone who had a good education knew. Yes, the ignorant got it by accident. The uneducated got it because of religion. Okay, the good old religion, the good old Bible, and the religious thing gave you morality. This is the thing where Greek and Roman philosophy and Christianity intersect on morality. They intersect on morality. Now, if you destroy that, this is why the 1960s were so destructive. The 1960s and the so-called sexual revolution basically ends up creating more poverty, more harm for the poor. Why? Because the purpose of Victorian morality wasn't designed just to make the life to be a moral prig. It was designed to ensure that it was there to improve the condition of the poor, to ensure that the poor would be able to form families. Because if you look at the reality of the family before the Enlightenment, even before Protestant Reformation, the very poor had no family. I mean, there was no such, the poor had massive illegitimacy. If you look at medieval world, the peasants and these people didn't have normal marriage, didn't have family. They just slept with someone, didn't even have families. It was like it was a free for all, and usually the aristocrats would use them as the aristocratic elites would use the lower classes as sex objects. You saw this in the 17th and 19th century. You wouldn't marry a girl from the lower classes. You'd screw with her, you'd use her, and you throw her out. You wouldn't dare marry it. You marry someone who has property and a reputation. That is the reality of the old world, the world of this in that sense. And it's a very we have to understand for what it was. Class mattered in this distinction. It was the Victorian age which sought to improve the conditions of the working classes and the poor by giving them families, by giving them houses, by imposing morality on them, to stopping their out drinking and things like this, was designed so that would be social mobility and restraining the wealthy from being imposing and taking advantage of them. That is the other thing of this. This is why I don't want to go on a diatribe. I'm 50 minutes over. I'm over my time for the thing. I hope everyone likes it. Hit the like button if you're not hit the like button. I just only responded the last minute thing to the people there asking these questions. Please have if you people put comments on things or things like this on the comment sections to what they would like to talk about or want me to discuss, or the issues or themes. I started today about the American primary because I was talking about the New Hampshire. Experience is a hard math teacher. Learning, people who want to say that, we can learn through experience. I'm sorry. Why? I mean, when millions of people were there before you and they gave you lessons, and they're what they did and what the lessons about, this is what, the idea that we ignore the actions and wisdoms of the past. That's why I consider myself a man of the right, not of the left, is because I'm not going to toss out the experience of our ancestors. Prejudice is not something we reject. Prejudice is simply just the wisdom or good judgment of the past in that sense. This is why I am that conservative aspect of it. And that's what's important about this. So therefore, this is so I hope we can talk about this. We're wrapping up today. If you like it, hit the like button, please. If you're not subscribed, please encourage others to subscribe. We had a subscription boom lately, so I'm happy about this. We went, we not near 180 yet. No, how much? What is it? What is our number right now? It is what? I want to get the number correctly. I don't want to misrepresent my status. I'll probably lose a couple people this week because every time I get a kind of a boom. Okay, no. I don't want to do this. Hold on. No. I'm having fighting. YouTube is going to try to say, hey, well, why don't you pick your service right now? Okay, and we finish this up. I'll end on my numbers. Dashboard. Hold on, I'm going to be here. I just want to get the numbers. It is 379. 379. Someone just subscribed just now recently, I think, maybe today, a couple minutes ago. 379, 380s, one subscription away from 380. I'd like to have I'll do a special video if we can get above 400. I'll do a special video or maybe even a special live video or a live chat on once I break 400. So let's go do this. That's what we're ending here today. We had the thing. We had election coverage. I may talk about election next week, a little bit about the New Hampshire, what happens with the Republican primary and the Trump derangement syndrome that's happening globally, and how Trump's the greatest dictator threat. Like, come on, this is like a joke in itself. And I'll continue on what I do. We'll talk about this. I will have some updates about life. Maybe my article will get published. I have an article on the crises of. I have to finish the article on the four small legislative court decisions that fundamentally changed America. And I don't mean the 14th Amendment. I mean talk about these small things from 1960s onward that really fundamentally altered the American political culture and political regime. Small things, the small things in that sense. They were not sexual. They're not personal. They were small judicial. They were court decisions that altered things, and 2 court decisions and 2 pieces of legislation. And that's my little piece that I want to talk, that I need to work on and send to an article to get some points. I need points. I got to do some points and maybe do something. I'm going to apply. I need to apply to a conference in Budapest to do something on Aristotle. I might do my small things thing. I have to think about it. Maybe I do on friendship. Maybe I'll do the importance of friendship or harmony. I need to think about it. I need to think about what I wrote a piece a couple years ago talking about gratitude, basically ingratitude, and why it's important that racial politics. If you want to prevent stasis, the only way you can keep a society from killing each other if they hate each other is to either forgive each other. I wrote a piece about forgiveness, which I was devastated. I was really attacked for it by the Bulwark just found my websites from the 1990s where my heroes, my dedication to my teacher Mel Bradford, and I got kind of my sympathy to the so-called anti-Clinton neo-Confederate people who were just kind of like responding against the kind of the Clinton leftist world, including a comment about the age. I mean, everything I said about the Clintons is equally true about the Biden hell we're in. So I might do something about that. Well, that's that. I'm already 20 minutes over my time, and it's past 6, so therefore my link is up already for the other link, so I better stop. Okay, take care, and I'll see you next time. And see you in my normal lectures. Go up there. You can like it, like button, please. Again, that didn't like it, you didn't hate it, you didn't like it. Don't hit the download, but say why in the comments in the normal chat. So you can follow me on social media. My social media links below. If you don't want to follow some other stuff, for my academic social media, and if you want to contribute, help me do what I do, you can do so through Subscribe Star or Patreon, or buy one of my books. Okay, so therefore that's it. Take care. Have a good weekend. Bye bye.